Throughout my life, I have struggled with this concept of consistency. And it is the one thing that everyone will tell you you need in order to achieve your goals. And it is also something that I personally have preached through my content and do believe is important. However, I want to take this video in order to just have a nice, honest conversation about what consistency actually means and why it is that you might be struggling with it. I know what it's like to feel like you don't know how to motivate yourself. You don't know how to maintain consistency in order to achieve your goals. And the advice that you might see online relates to finding a goal that matters most to you, so that way you are motivated to achieve it, to reframe it in such a way that it is more motivating to your brain day to day. But when it is cold and dark outside and you don't want to get up to write your dissertation, or you don't want to go to the gym, sometimes those things aren't strong enough to help maintain consistency. And so if you're new to my channel, hi, my name is Kaelyn. I am a fifth-year PhD candidate in history and African American studies at Yale. I'm a full-time product manager at a tech startup. I own 2 businesses. I create content, and with my content, I share vlogs as well as informational videos about holistic productivity, business, education, and basically anything that I find interesting. And if that is something that vibes with you, then go ahead and make sure to hit the subscribe button. And in today's video, we're going to be going over the 4 reasons that you might be struggling with consistency, as well as some solutions, both focused on systems that are internal and external. Now, one quick disclaimer before we really get into the video is that I'm not going to give you a perfect how-to guide. This is going to be a bit conversational, and I also want to take into consideration that there are factors that are outside of our control that impede on our ability to maintain consistency. A lot of the productivity advice that you see online and even on my channel is generalized in order to impact the most people. Now, that being said, there are people that are going to struggle with things such as neurodiversity, physical disability, chronic pain, and chronic fatigue that are going to impact your ability to maintain consistency. And I just want to say that although this video makes a couple of generalizations because it is intended to have the widest impact, you want to take all advice that you see online with a grain of salt and take the tips that work for you. And those that don't, or that you don't feel apply to you, you don't have to apply them in your day-to-day life. This is not a perfect system. I'm not a perfect human being. I am not the most consistent person in the world, but these are the tips that have helped me develop consistency that make it manageable, even as somebody who is a constant and chronic procrastinator who suffers with chronic pain. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump in to number 1, which is that you are asking the wrong questions. One of my pet peeves is when I see questions online about how to stay motivated, or when I see people looking for a quick fix solution with an application or an accountability partner or something that is going to be the one-size-fits-all solution for beating procrastination, for maintaining consistency, for having motivation. I think we need to reframe the question because oftentimes, at least in my experience, it is connected to something deeper, and it's a thing that we don't necessarily want to address. For example, I was really struggling with consistency with moving my body and with getting into fitness. Some context here is that I used to be a professional athlete. Between the age of 18 and 22, I rode horses professionally, and I would train in order to make my riding better, in order to ride the more difficult horses. And since leaving my professional career, I've really struggled with maintaining consistency. And I used to ask the questions of like, how do I get motivated to go to the gym? How do I consistently go to the gym? I used to really rely on having friends that would go to the gym with me in order to go. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I started trying to think about why I was actually struggling with the consistency, what was underlying it. And what I came to realize was that I had always worked out for the result of being a better rider for the particular horse that needed me to be stronger with my arms, or I would go to the gym in order to impress my boss, or I would be going to the gym simply so that way I could improve my riding. But it never felt like something that was for me. It was always for my career, it was for my boss, it was for my clients, it was for the horses. When I no longer had to do it, I no longer had the motivation, the external drive and pressure to go. And that is when I started trying to change my relationship to fitness in order to make it something that had an objective and had a system that was something that was for me. And that's when I actually changed the framework to thinking about going to the gym as the thing that helps me experience less pain. I was in a horseback riding accident when I was 14, and I had a really severe back injury. I had punctured a lung and had caused a lot of trauma to my back, which then resulted in me developing scoliosis. And I have pain pretty much every day. And there are times when it gets worse and when it gets better, and there are certain things that I've done to mitigate. But what I found is that when I'm consistently going to the gym with the thought in mind that if I go, I will feel so much better in my body afterward, that is what has helped me maintain consistency. Now, this is not the thing that gets me out of bed when it is dark and it is cold and I don't want to go. This isn't about finding a perfect solution. A quick mindset shift is not going to be the thing that solves your consistency problem. However, asking the question of ourselves, what is actually underlying my inability to be consistent? For example, I fail to be consistent because I have multiple passions and, my focus changes. And so therefore, it's really difficult for me to maintain interest in something over a long period of time. Being able to acknowledge that means that you can develop systems so that way you can just follow those ebbs and the flows and structure your time, your work, your systems around that particular type of response. So this is really about not trying to shove ourselves into the model of consistency and productivity that we think we should be exhibiting, but instead asking, why is it that I personally am struggling with this? Is it an emotional response? Is it something that relates to my brain and the things that it needs and the things that it's interested in? Really think about what is underlying it so that way you can actually address it. Now, like I said, that's not the only thing that's going to fix the problem, but it is something to help us move in the direction of a solution. But we are going to have to continue to iterate in order to maintain consistency. And that is what leads me to point number 2. A lot of the messaging that we received in the early 2000s and even now on social media is that it is not about motivation. It is about discipline. It is about grit. It is about hustle. It is about getting up when it is cold and dreary and you don't feel like doing it. And that is the thing that is going to make you feel better. And as somebody who has pushed through mental illness, physical injury to the detriment of my overall health in order to demonstrate discipline, I don't think that this is the solution. And this is partially what I was trying to get at in point 1. And that is that we need to think about ourselves as the evolving human beings that we are. The things that worked last week, the thing that worked 2 years ago may not work today to help you maintain consistency. And this was the most difficult pill for me to swallow. Back when I was in college, I used to stay up until about 2 or 3 in the morning almost every single night. I had it down to a science. I would come back from class, I would take an afternoon nap, I'd grab dinner with my friend Chloe, and we would start studying. And then around 9 p.m., we would go get coffee and then continue studying until 3 a.m. Now, I'm a morning person, so I would always wake up at 7 or at the latest 8 a.m., and I usually had an 8 a.m. lecture. For some reason, that seemed to work, and I'm just going to blame it on being young and energetic, highly interested in what I was doing. But as somebody heading into their 30s, that does not work for me anymore. I sometimes get into this mindset of, well, I could do it back then. Why can't I do it now? Or I could do it last week, or I could do it last semester. Why can't I maintain the same type of output or consistency or motivation that I had back then? And that is where I think we develop that negative self-talk inside of our brain that is not actually helpful. And it's not necessarily about this like grit and hustle and pushing and saying, well, I did it yesterday, so I can do it again today. It's finding ways to actually work with our evolving bodies, psychology, circumstances, and creating systems that allow us to maintain consistency under a new set of circumstances. We need to think about how is it that we can maintain consistency without needing the system and the routine to be absolutely perfect. And that is what leads me to my recommendation, which is to have challenges. Whether that's challenges that you are going through with a friend, or it's trying out something new within that particular task that seems exciting in that moment. As we evolve, we may need new things, new shiny things, in order to help us maintain that consistency. For example, when there was the Lucky Girl trend going around on TikTok, that was highly motivating for me for about a week. And that was what helped me maintain consistency with writing and with working out. And so if there's a particular challenge that helps you get excited about that particular task or that project, then lean into it. And don't beat yourself up if it doesn't work the following week. We have to continue to adapt with our brains and with our circumstances, so that way we can maintain interest in the thing. And this is not a perfect science, but creating these mini challenges is another way to improve your relationship with consistency, to make it just a little bit more fun. And that is also what leads me to the sponsor of today's video, which is Trainwell. So Trainwell is an application that pairs you with a personal trainer. And as I said earlier in the video, I've always kind of struggled with my relationship to fitness. But over the last year or so, I've been really consistent about focusing on going to workout classes and going to the gym to perform exercises that are just mentally and physically enjoyable for me, and that leave me feeling much sounder in my back. However, since I started riding horses again, I'm realizing that I have a bunch of weaknesses in my body that need some work. And there's two things that I struggle with. One, it's not really knowing what to do. And two, that sometimes, even if I'm with somebody that knows what they're doing, I will push myself too hard and then actually make myself experience too much pain on the back end. And that doesn't make me want to do it again. So I have basically cut out strength training, but knowing that it would improve my riding and that it will improve my back health to do some strength training, I wanted to do it in a way that was going to be enjoyable. And that is why I decided to begin using Trainwell. I had seen my friend Becca use it a couple of months ago. And so I got paired up with my personal trainer based on a survey that I filled out. Now I have to say that their survey is actually really in depth. It asks you what your goals are, and it's not just the focus on, gaining strength or losing weight, or if you are just looking to enjoy fitness again. And after you get paired with your personal trainer, you not only have access to them in order to actually come up with a plan, but you also get to work with them on text message, and they do little video conferences with you in order to walk you through things that you might be struggling with, or to offer some additional motivation and accountability. I figured out a system for maintaining consistency and actually enjoying going to the gym again. And now I'm just trying to level up a little bit, and I am working with Trainwell in order to do so. You can sign up with a free trial so you can check it out for yourself and just give it a shot and see if maybe pairing yourself with a personal trainer will help you to improve your relationship with fitness again and create a system that's actually based on your personal goals. And speaking of goals, that's what leads me to number 3 of why you may be struggling with consistency. And that is that you aren't actually setting actionable goals. Now, a couple of months ago, I started working with Ali Abdal, who is the productivity expert here on YouTube. But what I've learned in working in the productivity space and working with a variety of students at Productivity Lab is that oftentimes the thing that people struggle with in taking action is actually setting goals that are actionable. And it sounds really silly, but oftentimes we set these really vast, really vague goals, and it makes it really difficult to actually show up for those goals every day. Now, what I mean by actionable goals are things that you actually have direct impact on. So, for example, instead of saying, I want to complete my dissertation, that is a massive, massive feat, and instead thinking about creating a little bit of a habit and creating actionable goals. For example, I will sit down and write for 20 minutes, 4 days a week. You schedule it in, you add it to your calendar. It is actionable. It is something that you are going to do. Another thing that I often see online is goal setting advice that is really focused on the result. This is very well-meaning and it does help, but just manifesting the result and thinking about how you're going to feel when you achieve that thing does not solve the entire problem. And oftentimes we just don't actually really enjoy the process. So for example, instead of just thinking about what the result is going to look like, I will also try to imagine what it's going to be like sitting down and making progress on my dissertation every day. How is it that I can make that process enjoyable? This includes, for me, things like having a playlist that I find highly motivating, going to study sessions that actually help me get the damn thing done, and actually creating the time and the space in my calendar that means that I'm showing up for my dissertation every single day, or at least a couple of days a week that I think are the most manageable and that I look forward to. And so the advice is essentially create actionable goals, but also find a way to make the process enjoyable. And on the note of making things enjoyable, one reason you may be struggling with consistency is that you're doing it alone. If I have learned anything over the last couple of months of struggling with my mental health and struggling with the decision of whether or not to stick with my PhD, what I was struggling with was that I wasn't actually surrounding myself with the people that were making it easy to be consistent. Your environment has such an impact on you and the people that you surround yourself with and the conversations that you're involved in. And having moved away from Yale and not having those external support systems that encourage and inspire you to take action, without that, I really struggled to actually sit down and get work done on my dissertation. I was around a lot of entrepreneurs and I was around other people that worked 9 to 5. And so that's what I started thinking I should be doing. And it made it really difficult to show up for my dissertation and make progress. But it wasn't until I surrounded myself with the members at Acceptance Society during the symposium in August and going for study days at Oxford and jumping on Zoom study sessions with them that I suddenly remembered why I actually went to school in the first place and why I really love my research and why it matters to me. This is a very personal note that the reason I personally was struggling with consistency was that I was doing it alone. I felt like I didn't have the people that were encouraging and inspiring me to take action on those goals and to work on my dissertation. So if you're doing it alone, that might be one thing that you're struggling with. And so I recommend trying to lean on community if you can. And if you're a student or a researcher looking for that type of support, you can check out an Accepted Society. If you are looking to get into a gym, I recommend finding, a running club or a group of people that you can go to the gym with, or people that regularly go to the same workout classes. If you're wanting to write a book, I recommend doing it alongside somebody else or to join a writing group. Community is so important. And that sense of belonging and connection is what often got us motivated to study in the library with our friends back when we were in college, or to leave the house to go to play at the park with our friends when we were children. We're not designed to do these things alone. And thinking that we can motivate and hustle our way into consistency when we are doing it alone, I think is just perhaps a bit naive. And I think it's okay to need people and to look for that support. So make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that help enable that consistency. We have now come to the end of today's video. This is a video I've had on my mind for months, and I've been really wanting to film it and just get some of my thoughts out there. I really liked the conversational style of this video. I did a similar video recently on time management, and if you want to check that out, it's going to be linked in the description below. But I just wanted to say a final thank you to Trainwell for sponsoring today's video, helping me along my own fitness journey, but also hopefully helping you as well. If you want to check out their free trial and learn what it would be like to work with a personal trainer, then go ahead and check out the link in the description below. And thank you all so much for watching today's video. Please comment any of the tips that resonated with you and anything else that you would like to add. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye, friends.